Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jay, and I'm a terminally online historian who reads way too much news and has way too many opinions about them. And so I want to just go over a few what I think the important stories of the week are, give you my thoughts about them. And I also have noticed some things online that I do feel like I need to talk about, regardless of if it's inspired by or as a result of any of these stories I'm going to cover this week or not. It's just good things that when you're uh, on social media or paying attention to news that everyone should know about, and I would do that at the end. But unfortunately, first, we do have to start talking with what has become the biggest story of the week, and that is the untimely murder of Charlie Kirk. First and foremost, I will state that I do not agree with pretty much any of his opinions. I think his opinions were regressive, not progressive, and they did tend to alienate a lot of minorities and were at times anti-racist and anti-trans friendly. This, unfortunately, he was. While I disagree with him, it is important to have uh, voices that are in opposition to your opinion. And Charlie Kirk, while he does have his faults, was one of the slightly better ones, as he did try to seek out conversations with folks that opposed him, even though his positions are completely regressive. His murder occurred during a Turning Point USA event at Utah Valley University on Wednesday early in the afternoon. Uh, Unfortunately, there is a subset of folks on Twitter that have a fetish for viewing footage of people dying or causing themselves harm, which forced me to see the video as I was trying to get confirmation of what was going on from reputable news sources. And due to my training as a military naval historian, as well as basic medical training that I got in high school as a Sea Cadet, once I saw the footage, there was no doubt that unfortunately that Mr. Kurt was not going to make it. It was definitely a catastrophic shot to the neck. Glenn Beck did report to one of the far right news outlets that he stated his daughter was at the event and that there was still a heartbeat within the first few minutes. And for this kind of shooting, that's actually pretty normal. The heart will continue to beat for a few minutes after the brain has shut down. Most likely, this catastrophic injury, once he was shot, he completely cut off blood circulation to Mr. Kirk's brain, and when the brain stops receiving blood, it shuts down instantaneously. As for the heart, it does take a few minutes, as it's more of a muscle that works automatically, and pretty much self-reliant. It will take a while for it to fully shut down. So yeah. Fortunately, though, there is a suspect that is in custody, a young person by the name of Tyler Robinson from that same Utah area. What we do know about him at this time is that he was a college dropout. Apparently, he scored 34 out of 36 on the ACT and got a scholarship to Utah State, but dropped out after a semester. He did go into the electrical trade and was working on his apprenticeship. Apparently, he was not a fan of Mr. Kurt, and all indications are he was a terminally online person, especially played video games, and appears to have been a fan of Nick Fuentes, as some of the markings on the bullet cases are common references to video games such as Helldivers 2, and also stuff on that Goipers, who are fans of Nick Fuentes, would place in their Discord chats. The motive at this stage is still unknown, and I do know that over the past couple of days, the far right and MAGA has been trying to, in every way, shape, or form, blame this on the transgender community. it has come out that one of his roommates and alleged romantic partner is a transitioning individual, but I will always emphasize, especially in this case, him having a relationship, whether it's a roommate or more closely, it has absolutely no bearing on this case. And MAGA and the right is completely in the wrong trying to use this to demonize the non-binary and transgendered community, and they should be put to shame for it. Another thing related to this, and it seems to be concerning, is the mishandling of the early stages of the investigation and getting information out to the public. And thankfully, this is also being condoned by the right as well. And it appears that FBI Director Kash Patel and the Trump administration caused vital information about the suspect and the suspect's arrest to be delayed so that they could take credit for it. I will say that I am giving no credit to the federal government and their involvement, as it does appear that it hampered the investigation and catching the suspect. And the real credit needs to go to the local law enforcement there in Utah. The suspect's retired cop father, who was willing to sacrifice his son's freedom and turn him in the name of justice, as well as their local family bishop, who gave that wise counsel to the suspect's father to have the peace to accept that his son is suspected of a major crime and needed to be turned in so he could face a jury trial by his peers. I was actually shocked when I heard about the arrest that the suspect was in Utah due to the delays caused by Director Patel in his interference. By the time that we started seeing the first images, regardless of how fast it went out to law enforcement, but by the time general public saw it, he had ample time to get into Mexico. Doing a quick Google Maps search, it looks like the nearest crossing over the Mexican border in southern Arizona is only about 12 hours away from the scene of crime. I also do want to have a blanket reminder, especially as one who has had opportunity to serve on a criminal jury, that this suspect is to assume to be innocent until he enters a guilty plea at arraignment, agrees to a plea bargain, or is convicted in a court of law by a jury of his peers. Until that time, he has the presumption of innocence. I will make note that Utah is a death penalty state, so there is a good chance that if the evidence is so overwhelming in the discovery process that a plea bargain can happen, I would much rather the suspect agree to a plea bargain, but that's not guaranteed, and this one will probably most likely go to trial. And like I said, Utah is a death penalty state, so that will, unfortunately, if he's found guilty and sentenced death penalty, then that process will play out over the next 10 to 15 years. Anyway, in more other crime news, basically, we did get two very important updates on the whole Jeffrey Epstein situation. The birthday book, the infamous 50th birthday book, was released in its entirety on Monday by the House Oversight Committee. And first of all, the Trump letter has been verified as existing. Second of all, and a lot more creepier, there are a lot of explicit references to Mr. Epstein's predation of minors, especially minor girls, that were referenced in very lighthearted ways by his friends who contributed to the book. A more short-term effect of it being released and confirmed is that the Wall Street Journal, is facing a $20 billion defamation lawsuit by Mr. Trump, and they can ask for it to be dismissed without prejudice because it is now shown that there is no defamation case as the document does exist. Next, and this might actually be a good thing for those who still think that there's an Epstein client list, and that is Bloomberg somehow got their hands on 18,000 emails of Ghislaine Maxwell's, and the contents of those emails, especially with between Miss Maxwell and Mr. Epstein, indicate that there is indeed a client list. As there's one particular email where Epstein sent to Maxwell that it's like, hey, add these people and remove these people, and one of the people to be removed was Trump. And also, it contained a spreadsheet which detailed gifts from Epstein to his high-profile friends, as well as to victims. A couple of the highlights was a $35,000 watch for Bill Clinton. One of Epstein's attorneys received a $71,000 Lexus, and the victims received lingerie, chocolates, and other items, and that's all detailed in that spreadsheet. And finally, for the news portion, we're going to go back to Ukraine because on Saturday, Trump has started urging EU nations to stop importing Russian oil. And I actually think this is a good idea and a good move by the Trump administration, even if it's for very selfish, trying to get a Pulitzer Prize reasons. Russia is heavily reliant on oil exports to fund their nation and their war machine, and any hit to their oil profits is a good thing. Next is just the other day, Friday in fact, the oil refinery in Ufa, which is 1,400 kilometers from the Ukraine border and also 1,300 kilometers east of Moscow, was hit. And that's a good thing because it's showing that Ukraine is getting and utilizing newer, longer range weapons platforms that can target these refineries. And the more refineries that they hit, the faster this war could come to an end. And adding to that is that the IEE is reporting that oil imports or exports are starting to fall below normal levels, and especially the previous month. So it is beginning to show that the attack on Russian oil is starting to take a hit. Now, unfortunately, we do have to talk about some things that I have been seeing online, and I do want to commentate on. So for that, I'm going to turn the camera to. So, unfortunately, I've seen some disturbing things online, which I do need to discuss. And first is a direct result of Mr. Kirk's tragic murder this week, and that is we need to have a better approach to political discourse. I'm personally fine with peaceful protests. I have partaken in them myself. Civil debates are great. I find town halls are a fantastic resource that politicians can use to have critical conversations with their constituents, and also even those running for office. That's a great resource, as well as just sitting down and having a one-on-one conversation with someone. And I find those to be the most productive approaches to political discourse outside of voting. And speaking of voting, you really need to vote at every stage of the election process, even if it's just a single ballot initiative for your county and nothing else on the ballot. Take the 5 minutes, go in and vote. Every election matters, especially at the local and state levels, because they have your local and state elections have a much larger short-term impact on your life than just voting for the presidential general election that happens in November every 4 years. With that out of the way, my approach to someone who has differing ideas from me, regardless of the topic, is I try to approach them from not understanding that my idea is better. Here's why. It's more like, hey, I want to just understand why you think this way. That way we can try and find some common ground. So the key to this approach, I find, is presenting your own side of the argument, and not as some data bombing or citing academic research or quoting your favorite political analyst. It's more like, hey, this is my experience. And that is just based on the fact that we humans are a communal species, and we have evolved that way, that we tend to prioritize a person's each person's personal experiences as more valid than studies in think pieces. Now, with that said, if a conversation starts to become unproductive or hostile, it's better to end the conversation and walk away than continue it. I have years of experience handling situations which have escalated to requiring a supervisor, and I was even taking those calls in my last job at a call center. And I have found it's always better to cut off a conversation at the point where it gets extremely hostile or unproductive than trying to argue with a brick wall. Additionally, I made a few posts on social media regarding Mr. Kirk's death and my opinion, and it does appear that some folks just were not fully comprehending what I was trying to convey. I do believe that this is a worrying issue, as looks like there are large numbers of the population that did not learn how to read or in a way to analyze the text, or even how to properly conduct textual analysis. I'm way above the average on this, as I do have a master's degree in history, and textual analysis is a large part of a process, especially when we're reviewing the historiography and the secondary sources and getting ready to present our arguments and figuring out what we're going to do. So that is something, and I know there's tutorials on the internet that can help you learn how to conduct a textual analysis. Fortunately, if you do a social media post correctly, it should be less than 300 characters, and so it should be easy to read the entire message, as every word contributes to what that person is trying to say, and as the part you disagree with may have already been qualified by an earlier part of the post. So just make sure if you find something that kind of you want to respond to, I find it's best to read the post 2 to 3 times just to make sure you fully comprehend what the original poster is trying to say before replying with your own initial reaction from what you read it the first time. And I am guilty of this, 99.9% of the time, your initial reaction to a post is typically wrong or misguided or not what is in it, not anywhere near what the original poster was trying to say. And lastly, also this is due to the incidents involving the unfortunate murder of Mr. Kirk this week, is when responding to breaking news, and it's not just Mr. Kirk's assassination, it's also anytime there's a fast updating event. Yes, there is a need I do see that there's a need to respond to breaking news as quickly as possible, but from my experience, usually in the first 3 to 6 hours after the event has started, that's when you get the most inaccurate reporting. Last summer I was in Springfield, Ohio, on the evening that the assassination attempt on Mr. Trump happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, and that was actually as we were about to sit down to eat dinner at the hotel, and had family members from all over the political spectrum, and some were starting to speculate, like, hey, hold on, this just happened. We don't know anything. They don't know anything. All they have is this footage the loop. We'll know more in about 5 to 6 hours, and we'll know a lot more in the morning. And what actually, me saying that, especially to some of my more Trump-friendly relatives, is it actually calmed us down, and we were able to focus more on being a family and enjoying our time together than worrying about what was going on in Butler. So I would always remind you that the press is going to always try and dump as much information and do as much speculation in the first 3 to 6 hours, because they're trying. Yes, they trying to present the news, but really they're ran by the accounting departments, not the news departments, and they're just trying to get ratings so they can one-up each other. So just be, especially in the first 3 to 6 hours after a breaking news event of account for of the Kirk murder or a school shooting or anything shocking like that. Just remember, first 3 to 6 hours, that's not going to be the best information. You're going to have to wait till you start seeing more official press conferences, and because even the authorities are still trying to figure out what they're doing. Well, with that said, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, subscribe, and share this to anyone you think would like it. If you do comment, please be kind to each other, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.